Millions of frontline workers keep our economy running and are provided with the latest technology to do their jobs. But digital adoption, especially by frontline workers, is really hard.
This is Frontline Innovators. We explore how to overcome challenges and achieve success when we empower our essential workers.
I'm Justin Lake.
And I'm Gene Signorini. Together, we speak with experts who are leading the way and driving digital transformation to the front line.
This podcast is sponsored by Skillful, on a mission to help frontline workers learn and use the technology needed to succeed in their jobs.
Welcome to the Frontline Innovators podcast. I'm your host, Gene Signorini, and I'm very excited for today's conversation. Our guest today helps mobile workers reach their full potential and productivity with technology. His focus is on developing business solutions for the key challenges of our era. He is currently CEO of Resco. Please welcome Andrew Lorraine. Andrew, really excited to have you on the show today.
Hey, Gene, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah. So, I think this question is going to be one of the easier ones for you, given how intimately you are involved with kind of the frontline workforce and working with them day to day. But I'm really interested in your perspective on what you see as the biggest challenge or challenges facing the mobile and deskless workforce today.
So before I answer, I want to admit something is that I cheated a little bit. I've been watching and listening to the podcast, so I knew this question was coming. and I prepared kind of a canned line that I wanted to use and test for the first time, something that we debut for the show. So I think the biggest challenge that is impacting mobile workers or frontline workers today is making sure that technology that's dreamt up in the clouds works on the ground, works in the real world.
Is that going to be Resco's new tagline? Because I like it. I love the concept.
I'm thinking of getting some merchandise made and maybe even tattooing it someplace on my arm or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love it, right? Making sure technology is dreamt up in the cloud, works its way in the ground. I mean, that's something that we, here at Skillful, obviously, that's kind of part of our core mission. But let's expand on that a little bit. So when you say that, it's a great soundbite, but let's dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it needs a little bit of work, but I appreciate it. I mean it literally and figuratively, right? Is that we'll take the figurative thing first, is that technology offers a lot of promise, a lot of transformation, the kind of words that are used with technology, digital transformation, innovation, these kind of things. But there's a lot of disconnect. There are many steps between the office, the boardroom, where these decisions are made, to the actual people who are on the front line or as part of a mobile workforce, delivering a service, doing something out in the real world. So, bridging the gap and making sure that the ideas that are made, translate through technology into things that work on the ground. And then there's the literal sense, is that in my adult lifetime and for the past decade or more, cloud applications have transformed the way that businesses operate and the efficiency and scale and speed that they can work. But there's often a lot of technological challenges that prevent those applications from working effectively in the field and in the mobile, amongst the mobile workforce in the real world. So our company Resco is focused on bridging the gap, literally and figuratively, to make sure that these big decisions that companies make have ways of working in the hands of a mobile workforce.
Yeah, and I love that. When we had a saying actually at the company that even predated Skillful, which was, you can't design solutions from the boardroom, right? Only because it generally doesn't necessarily manifest itself the way that it was envisioned there on the whiteboard, right? So to speak. But, if you think about that, the boardroom on one side, right, or where these the concepts or the drivers for digital transformation start, and then the realities on the front line. What are the things that fill up the middle, right? So if you were to say kind of what are the things that help it bring it from the 100,000 foot view in the clouds down to the ground level, what are the the components in the middle that perhaps are often overlooked?
Mm-hmm. Well, selecting the right people to design and implement the software that you want to work with is the first thing that comes to mind, both the vendors, but also the service partners and implementation partners that companies often rely on to translate their projects into reality. So that's, at Resco, that's where we operate. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. But then I think something that definitely resonates on your show is connecting and bringing in stakeholders from the mobile workforce, champions or the men or women with experience who are looked up to amongst their peers, and kind of bringing them into the design and decision-making process from the outset to make sure that there's buy-in. So I'm sure that this is a topic that you've heard before, but that's another thing that comes to mind. Choose the right, vet and choose the right partners that you have for designing the system so that it's designed effectively, and then bring in the workers themselves to the process as early as possible to make sure that their voices are heard, and some of the potential disasters are avoided, or pitfalls are avoided from the beginning instead of when it's too late.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. Obviously, as you mentioned, you're on the solution provider side of it. And there's probably a number of people who are listening or might not be familiar with Resco. And you guys are doing some really innovative work and innovative things. So talk a little bit about what Resco does, why Resco was created to begin with to address these challenges.
Mm-hmm. Resco was created in 1999 when I was 10 years old, before I had before I had my own phone, or I think Blackberries or Palm Pilots were, one of the first generations of these devices were out there. And the founders of the company recognized very early on that these devices would offer a lot of opportunity, not just for consumers, but also for businesses. So we went through a series of different products that were all meant to help speed up developing apps for business use on mobile devices. Where we've I think made our mark in the world over the past decade or so has been with our no code platform for designing mobile applications that integrate with CRM, most notably Microsoft Dynamics CRM and Salesforce CRM. So we kind of understood the promise of mobile devices for work, and the great things that they can do for mobile workers to make work more effective and efficient and faster, and all these kind of great things. In tandem with the rise of cloud-based CRM or ERP applications for business use, and making sure that there was a quick way to design pretty complex mobile apps that were integrated and can be iterated or customized incrementally to make sure that the solution worked and continued to serve the evolving needs. And then ever since then, we've scaled to serving clients through our partner network all over the world, most notably North America and Europe, where we're based over here in Europe. Continuing to be a specialized mobility provider, just kind of having tunnel vision and focusing on enterprise mobility, offline use cases, these kind of rugged types of mobile work experiences, making sure that there was a technology that was up to the job, the difficult job of serving these mobile workers or these frontline workers.
So, you mentioned obviously that this concept of no code, low code, creating those mobile app experiences, but connected to these larger CRM systems, right? Which many companies, most companies are probably using, one of 5 different CRM systems or something like that, right? Maybe it's even less. Microsoft Dynamics 365 or Salesforce, or if it's SAP, for example, wherever, they also have their own mobile applications, right? So
yep.
Why do companies turn to Resco? What is it about what Resco does helps them achieve kind of what you talked about at the beginning, right? Which is bringing kind of the reality down to the front line, to that frontline experience.
I think it's all about perspective. Is those all the CRM vendor or all of the CRM providers do have their own mobile applications, but the perspective is that that's secondary, right? Is they create the CRM product and a mobile app, and it's typically just kind of taking CRM and putting it all on a smaller screen. I'm simplifying, but you get my point. And we, from the outset, kind of flipped it on its head and said, no, it's actually, we're mobile first, or mobile by design, or offline by design. That has a lot of implications for the way the technology is created. And then it manifests itself in the performance of the applications, the adoption of the applications, the effectiveness of the applications. So there's, we're happy that there are options available, and certain companies can pick and choose the right, tool for the job, which is the way it ought to be. But companies typically come to us because they have requirements that exceed the tools that are available from the CRM providers. Your field service organizations with hundreds or thousands of service technicians who are out on the road each day doing 3 or 4 different visits and different kinds of repair work or installations or maintenance, these kind of things, or entirely mobile workforces who never even open Salesforce or Dynamics. They just open up an application on their phone or their tablet. So our technology is designed differently. It's mobile first, and that is why we continue to have success in helping companies extend the CRM platforms or ERP platforms or inspections tools out into the field.
So I imagine, at perhaps that one of the key elements to this, as you mentioned, you've got these large, broad CRM systems, right, that have tremendous functionality, right, inherent in them. But the specifics of the use cases you kind of and the workflows, right, is that where you're kind of seeing this need, right? It's like, okay, yeah, it's great. We may be a field service organization, but our workflows are drastically different, or even subtly different than other field service organizations. So we need to kind of design the experience or tailor that experience to our particular needs. Is that really where that tailoring comes in, as on the workflow side of things?
Yeah, and on the offline requirements and the data requirements.
Yep.
An easy way to think about it is whether if the company is satisfied of taking their desktop CRM process and putting it on a mobile device, or they have a different approach, a different strategy where there's a dedicated process or set of processes for their mobile workers that they need an extra tool to try and accomplish an application. Without having to spend tons of money on custom development and building their own app and updating it and supporting it and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. The other thing that comes to mind is this notion, of employee experience, right? So as we talked about earlier, is getting it down to those frontline workers in a way that is actually useful to them. And I know there's been a lot of talk around the employee experience, right? And that's a very broad term, and it can mean a lot of things, right? But for a lot of frontline workers, that means the tools that they're given, how easy it is to get their jobs done. How much of an emphasis have you seen from your customers in thinking about it from an employee experience standpoint? I guess another way to ask this is, do you get brought in after the fact? Are customers kind of thinking about you first, or they find you when they realize, hey, listen, Dynamics 365 is great. It's giving us a lot of things, but it's not necessarily delivering the experience for those frontline workers we've imagined, and now we're feeling a little bit stuck and we need some help.
Yeah, honestly, it's all of the above. Where it's a kind of the least optimal case, or the suboptimal case, is when there's a project to implement CRM, and a tiny piece at the end of the project is set aside for the mobile experience, the employee experience. And typically every project has, is over budget and kind of deadlines are missed. And what ends up suffering is the last part, which is meant to be the, dedicated for the employee experience, the mobile application, what have you. So we've been in those situations, and we try to advise against them, because they often end up sabotaging the project, or having more costly delays. But to bring it back to your question, is we see both kinds of situations where companies have decided have went with a CRM, Dynamics, Salesforce, what have you, use the available mobile application, see that it's not up to up to par, or there's some kind of challenge that they have with adoption or with performance, and then they go to market to see what other vendors are there, what other options are there. But we really emphasize working with a partner network, and there we're able to have trusted partners, advisors who know to introduce this from the outset, is that they've been through it before. They can anticipate some of the challenges based on the requirements for a project, and they can say, look, we advise you to bring in a specialty mobility provider here, because we know that you're going to have a challenging use case or process, and you need some special technology to accomplish it.
What does that partner ecosystem look like to you? So if you were talking to somebody and say, hey, you're really thinking about either completely rethinking our approach to mobile and our digital transformation, or we're just embarking on one, and they were to ask you, okay, who are the types of vendors, who do I need to kind of surround myself to make sure this is successful? What does that landscape look like, right? What are the 3, 4, 5 types of vendors, if it is that much, that you would tell an enterprise, a friend in an enterprise, to kind of say, hey, these are the types of folks you should be reaching out to, or you need to kind of surround yourself with?
I don't want to, cop out of the question, but it really depends on the type of company and the size and the needs, because there are partners of all shapes and sizes that we work with. And it depends. Some are specialized towards particular industries, so they know the process, they know the standard, the experience, the pitfalls, the pros and cons of digital transformation projects. So in some cases, we would point a company towards an industry specific, implementation partner, maybe someone who even has their own vertical or industry product that's built on Microsoft, that's built on Salesforce, and they partner with Resco for the mobile side. Other companies are so large and complex that they need to be thinking of teaming up with a similar sized services partner, is someone who can operate at the scale that they require. So those are your enterprises or your corporates who are doing really gigantic transformation projects or digital initiatives, these kind of thing. And then there are a lot of companies in the middle that just need, I think, someone who's been there and done that and has references and has been through it before, and you can trust them a bit, because they have a track record of success. And at Resco, our partner network comprises all of those types of partners around the world, companies who are able to help other companies go through their digital projects, either on the Microsoft technology stack or Salesforce or what have you.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned earlier, Resco, it was founded in 1999 when you were 10. So obviously you haven't been there since you were 10, but maybe you joined at 15 or something like that. I don't know. But talk a little bit. How did you get involved with Resco? I know a little bit about this story. I think it's fascinating. So I'd love you to share it with the audience. So
I appreciate it. I'm happy to share it because it's kind of odd. It's not very typical. So Resco's based in Bratislava, Slovakia, which is probably an unfamiliar place to a lot of listeners or viewers of the show. It's right in the heart of Europe. It's near Vienna. It's near Prague, those kind of cities in Central Europe. But I'm American. I grew up outside Philadelphia. I was disappointed I watched the Super Bowl, was disappointed at the way it turned out. By the way, your co-host and colleague Justin we have some friendly banter because he's a Giants fan.
Yeah, that's why we didn't have him interview you. We know it wouldn't have gone well. So
no, smart choice. Yeah, it would have gone sideways. So, but my family roots are from Slovakia. I went to college, was thinking about law school, and decided to apply for a Fulbright scholarship, which is through the U.S. State Department, to go live abroad and research and teach, kind of do an academic year abroad in between school. And I chose Slovakia because I have family roots here. They left in the 1800s to move to Pennsylvania and work in the coal mines and railroads, kind of a typical story for a lot of Americans. And I just loved it over here. I had a really great experience. I learned the language. I made a lot of friends. Really felt like I had a strong connection here. And eventually, I made my way back. I think around the age 25, somewhere around there, because I saw a lot of business potential and career potential for me. Slovakia it's a beautiful country. There's a lot of talented people here. Some great innovative businesses, a lot of excitement and dynamism in the IT and technology sector. And I saw an opportunity to find a home and help, export some of the products or represent the company abroad, and kind of help accelerate some outcomes. And that's what brought me to Resco. And I started out in our sales organization, worked my way up to starting a team dedicated to strategic partnerships, some of our global partners, and eventually managed our partnership with Microsoft. We've been talking about Microsoft before. I haven't mentioned this, is that we actually had a special partnership with them where our mobile platform, our app designer, and the mobile app itself was relicensed by Microsoft and offered as part of their field service application. So that was a huge accomplishment for Resco, for the company. It was a partnership that scaled to many thousands of users and service technicians all over the globe. And I was at the center of it and helping make sure it went smoothly, and that we were, cooperating, developing our technology together, being successful in sales and marketing, all that kind of stuff. And then eventually last year, I was promoted into the role of CEO to lead and represent the company and work with our partners, our clients, and kind of help see us through the next, evolution and phase of Resco. So I'm based over here in Bratislava. I miss the US a lot and some of the comforts and, family and friends and everything. It was difficult during the pandemic to be apart for so long. I think there were about 3 years in between visits. But I was back last summer. I'm planning to bring my family over for the summer this year and to spend some time. Still have family in the Philadelphia area and everything.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a great journey. And obviously, you've kind of grown through the firm, and I imagine you've seen a lot, right? Your experiences have brought you into contact with customers and partners, kind of as you've kind of described it. If we kind of come back to some of those things, the main theme that we talked about earlier, which is this big challenge of making sure that, the digital transformation that is dreamed up, right, is ultimately successful. What are some of the things that you maybe have seen that have been where customers have kind of fallen down a little bit, right? Yeah. Where, things that haven't gone as planned. What are some of the kind of common attributes of those type of situations?
Before I answer that, I want to say that one of the things that I consciously try and address or overcome is my maybe bias isn't the right word, but the fact that I spent most of my career at Resco, and not outside at some of the partners or customers that we work with. That's something that I kind of consciously try and work on. Again, to get back to the start of the show, is not to make sure that decisions and ideas and products that we make here actually resonate and work in the real world. So that's kind of something I have on my desk, and just trying to remind me to keep it real and grounded and that kind of thing. So some of the common pitfalls or challenges, trying to make a one-size-fits-all solution or a broad solution work for a very specific type of company, because then it's like trying to put on a shoe that doesn't fit. Like, you can kind of make it work, but it's always going to aggravate you, and it's not, in the long term, it's probably not a good decision. So trying to take a CRM and make it be something else. That's where a lot of projects have fallen short. Not, suboptimal design, and talking about maybe more of the technical aspects of it, is trying to not thinking about the scalability of a design of a system. So if something that maybe works for 30 service technicians, each doing 3 jobs a day, but then when you get to 300 or 3,000, the system just isn't designed to handle it, and things fall apart or just become unsustainable. So kind of game planning out the design of a system from the beginning. And then, I think having segmented or separated decision-making units within a company, whether it's the boardroom or the IT department or a business unit, making a change without bringing in their counterparts in IT or the representatives from the mobile workforce, the frontline workforce, and this kind of thing, and then trying to falling short when it actually comes time to use it. So that, off the top of my head, those are really those are the pitfalls that come to mind.
Yeah, and I'd love to dig in a little bit on this last one, which is kind of engaging different stakeholders, in particular the frontline teams, right? The frontline individuals. And you mentioned that a little bit earlier as well. What strikes me is, we talk a lot and about technology, but for these frontline workers, it's not, in many cases, not just their technology change. In some cases, it could be their workflows, their business process, right? They'd be doing things in a different way, not just doing them on a mobile device, but doing things in a different way, which is hopefully leads to those transformations, right? That's kind of, in many cases, why we're implementing this, or should be. So, how do you, and this is a theme that we've talked about on this program many times, which is this getting the buy-in, not only the buy-in early on from those frontline workers, but then making sure that the solution is easy to use and usable, right? So that they're actually, it's one thing to get their input up front, is how do we make sure that now it's getting traction, it's gaining adoption? What are those, what are the techniques that you help customers with? What are some of the successful things you've seen customers do?
Mm-hmm. So I admit that we're at a disadvantage when it comes to this because of our great partner network, right? Typically, we are some layers removed from the actual projects themselves, and oftentimes we're working with our partners and advising them on their projects with the customers and the end users of the technology. So our advice is always to, in the project organization from the outset, is to get a representative, a champion, someone from the mobile workforce that's looked up to involved, so that they have some ownership and they're able to help others buy into it. So but when we work directly with clients, we kind of insist that it goes beyond the IT staff, and that we work and we see and we experience a day in the life of one of the actual users. So we go around and kind of monthly try and visit a client of ours and do a ride along or a service visit with them and see how things are actually working. And we often come away with improvements or ideas that we can add to the technology to make it more intuitive, to make the buttons bigger, little things often that can make the experience better. So my recommendation is just to think about this from the beginning. It's probably nothing to breakthrough or something that you haven't heard before on the show, but just to really insist on it and to make that a best practice of any kind of new introduction of technology, a change of a process. Even if, if it's, I know that everyone has phones, everyone is used to using applications, but it can be an intimidating change for people, even if you're used to using these things. So our advice and our practice itself is to just live a day in the life of a mobile worker, of the people that you're building the technology for, get them involved in the design process, iterate through some versions of an application or a CRM before you actually try and deploy it, and try and establish some buy-in from the people who are ultimately going to have to being forced to use this.
What are there certain? I love the idea of ride arounds. It's something that we've talked about a lot, and we do here at Skillful quite a bit. Are there common areas of feedback or things that you hear from the field? I'm just kind of curious. Is kind of, what are some of those common reactions?
Some things are really simple, like how do I go offline, or how do I synchronize? How do I use the application? Because things that are intuitive for us as the technology creators may not be so intuitive for people outside of our four walls. Some other things are just, yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised. It often is about the UX inside of the application, or the UI of the application, that things are too small or difficult to click, or again, things I'm sure that you've heard from, but for us are like they're so straightforward, but it's often things that we overlook. We're trying to think of new product innovations, or improvements maybe to the low level technology, the synchronization, the offline mode, or these kind of things. But often it just comes down to, like, it takes too many clicks to get through a process, and it's really frustrating. So we spent a lot of time working with partners to try and, once we learn these things, or can anticipate them, just trying to overcome them, and introducing design tools in our platform that reduce the number of clicks, for example, or allow partners to expand a button size. And that's really, I think, at the heart of what we're trying to do with our platform, is to just make it easier and faster to build, to iterate, to adjust, so that people can have these conversations, and you can publish immediately and you can see the change immediately, which is often really, has a lot of satisfaction for people, that their voice is heard and the change can be made without a huge project and, expense and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's so important, as you said, just to hear that feedback firsthand, and like you said, make sure that they believe their kind of voices are heard. You also kind of mentioned this, hey, just like, hey, how do I do certain things in the application, right? And obviously that's kind of close to heart for me and for us at Skillful. But
yeah, absolutely.
what's your perception in terms of I'm sure it varies, right? Because you've seen a lot of different customers in a lot of different use cases in different industries. What are the ways that your customers are training, making sure that people know how to use it? What are the resources they're being given to support them when maybe they're getting hung up?
They're varied. They're varied. Some are given technology resources, tools like Skillful, to make sure that there's kind of a wizard that guides them through the process and teaches them how to use it. Some organize in-person workshops or remote workshops, or these kind of things, which can have mixed results, to be honest. Others document and put stuff online and have a learning center, or kind of a center of excellence or something like that. Also can have mixed results. I think there's a lot of peer teaching and peer learning, where someone figures it out and teaches, the next guy or girl how to do it, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean that's the last point. That's something we have heard, obviously, from customers of ours as well, is that, yeah, that's typically the first place they're going to go, right? Because they don't have an easy way to get the answer otherwise, right? So they're going to turn to a peer. The challenge with that we've heard, obviously, is that, peers are busy too, right? So if it's their supervisor or somebody else, they can't get them right away, and they're overburdened. The other common pitfall we've heard with that is just the inconsistency, right? So someone may do it one way or the other. And when we talk about these applications, I'm sure is that, these applications either guide the workflows or you're indistinguishable from their workflows in the process. So when you're doing something a certain way in the application, someone's doing it one way, someone's doing the other, you may be executing the process differently, which leads to inconsistencies. So
yeah, it's like Whisper Down the Lane,
Yeah. Yeah.
that kids game, right? So one of the things that we're doing with a couple of our products is to make it the experience as guided as possible, to take the guessing out of it, to automate whatever we can, both to make it easier for the worker, but also to reduce the inconsistency and the different types of data you can get, the inaccurate data that you can get. So that's how we're trying to address it and just kind of remove the possibility of that problem.
Yeah. Are you guys at Resco? Are you monitoring app usage and feature functionality usage? Are you providing those analytics to customers? Do you even ask for it? Do they care? That's one of the things that we've seen inconsistency around in general, is that, companies, don't really have good visibility in terms of how their applications are actually being used.
Mm-hmm. It's an area for improvement for us, but we do have some tools that we give to either our partners or our customers to help monitor it. I think the thing that is most often used is the kind of security or MDM type tool to assign the access to the application and to take it away in case the employee leaves or their device is lost or whatever. So I think that's kind of the user management thing is probably the piece that's used the most. We do because offline is kind of our thing. We have a whole dashboard and module set up to help monitor the synchronization, how often the mobile workforce is sending the data that they get offline back into the system, and is it working well, or are there areas for improvement to make that process smoother for everyone? So that's for us. That's kind of where we focus our analytics and data is, are your users sending their data back into the system to get it there so that your company can work with it and do interesting things with it? And are there areas for improvement to make it more user friendly for everyone?
Yeah, I mean, and that I think that's great, because I do think that there's still a gap there, right? In terms of once you put it out in the wild, right? Is it doing what you want it to do, right? So that's the other, I think, going back to your central point, which is, okay, how do we make it so that is actually implementable? It works the way it should, right? That it's being used. But now, are we getting the results from that we wanted to, right? That we dreamt up in the boardroom, 2 years ago. Is that manifesting itself?
Yeah, and one of the reasons why we're happy to partner with someone like Microsoft or Salesforce is that they have a lot of great tools for aggregating data, for doing something with it, to being able to make decisions or see if things are not working or working well. So I think we really, our focus is entirely on the mobile side, and we're happy to partner with these bigger technology providers who have a really big breadth of tools to work with data, to build these systems, to host the data on the cloud and all that kind of stuff.
That's great. So Andrew, before we kind of conclude today, I want to kind of, as I said, you had an interesting journey, right? From, on the precipice of going to law school and somehow wound up halfway across the world at a technology company. So you are kind of an accidental technologist in a lot of ways, right? My background is kind of similar, that I never kind of necessarily envisioned being in the technology world, and have spent my entire career there. What do you really enjoy about it? What's your favorite part of working in technology, working at Resco?
Helping partner, it shouldn't be a surprise, because I kind of, my career evolved towards, in Resco, evolved towards partnerships and everything, but really helping businesses create their business, taking away part of the risk and challenge of making a complex mobile application, offloading that to us. We take care of that hard thing so that they can specialize in really like a transformational product or project. So for me, the most satisfying thing is to work with partners, to develop a relationship, and to earn their trust with our technology, and to take care of a really what we believe is really important part of the process, and to offload that on us, and we, that's our focus, and we deliver it, and that whole experience for me is really fulfilling. I mean, it's also great to see our applications used by a variety of companies around the world, doing lots of different and interesting things. So that I get a sense of pride from seeing either field service organizations or sales organizations, or NGOs, or lots of different types of great projects that we have success with their digital transformation projects, because we're covering that last mile for them, and taking care of some hard stuff so that they can rest easy.
Yeah, it is rewarding when you kind of get to see what other companies are doing, and maybe companies you'd never heard of, right, that are having a big impact, large companies that you may never heard of who are making a big impact. So I can certainly relate to that.
Yeah.
Andrew, this has been a great conversation, and I really appreciate you joining. For folks who want to learn a little bit more about Resco, who might want to get in touch with you, what's the best channel for them to do so?
So our website and our social is great for Resco. I think the best way to get in touch with me is just to find me on LinkedIn and reach out, and I'm more than happy to connect and have a conversation about whatever topic you have in mind. I think our team will be going to a couple events. I got to look at my list here. We're going to be at Connected Worker 2023 in March in Houston. So if anyone is attending, that's a good place to meet up with some of my colleagues from Resco, as well as Field Service USA later in April in sunny Palm Springs, California. I'm kind of jealous that I'm not going to be coming over for that. So we tend to go to the field service oriented events, and you'll probably find us there, the Microsoft events. And then I do have to plug our annual user group conference. So if anyone is listening out there, working with Microsoft or Salesforce, or just mobile technology in general, we have a great conference each year over in Europe in the fall time called Resco Next. That's focused on mobile workers, mobile workforce technology, showcasing our partners and clients and our technology solutions, and in general just kind of coming together as a community. We had Justin there as a speaker last year. That's how we got to know Skillful, and so I would just plug that. We're going to be teasing and out and releasing the date and the location next month in March. So some more information to come.
Great. Yeah, no, Justin had great things to say about that conference last year. I was jealous that he was out and was in Portugal last year, I think.
Yeah,
right?
It was Lisbon. We try and we typically have it in Europe and go from cool destination to cool destination.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are a lot of cool places to check out. So
yeah, I definitely urge your users, your partners, your prospects to check that out. And again, Resco, resco.net is the Resco website. If you want to connect with Andrew, we're gonna tag him on our LinkedIn page. So visit the Frontline Innovators LinkedIn page, and you can easily find Andrew there. Again, Andrew, really appreciate you joining. Enjoyed this conversation a lot.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, and thanks so much for having me, Gene.
Thank you. So we'll wrap it up here. I hope you listening have found this conversation as enjoyable as I have. I'd like again to thank Andrew and thank you, our listeners, for your continued engagement with the podcast. With that in mind, for those listening, we welcome your ideas for future themes or topics we can discuss on the show. Please feel free to leave a comment on the Frontline Innovators LinkedIn page with any thoughts you have. And a friendly reminder that the podcast is sponsored by Skillful, the only end-to-end systems training platform optimized for frontline operations. You can learn more about how you can solve your frontline systems training challenges by visiting skillful.com. That's SKYFULL.com. Thank you, and I look forward to joining you on our next episode.